1:02. I'm sorry, gentlemen, we're gonna go ahead and start the meeting. Okay. Thanks. It's 1:02 p.m. on Wednesday, right? Wednesday, August 6th, 2025. And I'd like to call this meeting of the Tucson Pima County Outdoor Lighting Code Committee to order. Could we get a roll call, please?
Amy Oliver,
Present.
Dennis Kuhn,
Here.
Craig Barron,
Here.
Robert East,
Here.
Viola Januzzi, Daniel Slater,
Here.
Alex Zimmerman. All right, and we do have a quorum.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So again, anyone who didn't hear Christina, we do have a quorum, so we're going to get going. So we're going to go right to our second item on the agenda, which is the approval of our minutes and legal action report from June 4th, which was our last meeting. We have a call for approval.
Yes.
Yes.
This is Dennis. I'll second.
Okay. Any opposed? Oh, sorry. Am I allowed that?
I just wanted to note that Alec has joined us.
Hey Clayton, hey everybody. Yep, I'm present. Sorry, I was a few minutes late.
Okay, hi Alec.
Hello.
So Alec, you joined just in time. We're at item 2 on the agenda. We're doing the approval of meeting minutes from the last meeting. So we had a first from Craig and a second from Dennis. Any opposed to the approval of the meeting minutes? All right, so we have that motion and no one has opposed. So all those in favor, say aye.
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 No. All right, the motion passes unanimously. Oh, sorry, Christina.
That's okay, you're good. It doesn't matter.
All right, so we're going to move on to our next item on the agenda, which is number 3. It's our subcommittee reports. Dennis, do you want to go ahead and just tell them what we've been working on? You've been leading a lot of this.
Okay. Really, I think since the last meeting, we've only had one subcommittee meeting, which occurred on August 1st. And fundamentally, we were working on the lumen cap tables and have come to a consensus in subcommittee what we think they should be. When we get to agenda item 5, I think I can go into that more in detail. We also briefly touched on some issues we see in the lighting area map, and that relates to the descriptions of lighting areas in chapter 3. We don't have that resolved yet, and we think we'll continue working on that. Pretty much that's what we've done in subcommittee.
Right. I mean, I agree. Does anybody have any questions about what we've been doing in the subcommittee?
I'd like to know if all the committee members got our recommendation on those lumen tables.
Sorry, Rob.
Yes, it was sent out via Clayton, I think, to everybody on the lumen tables. In the lumen tables, you said we're going to get to review those at a later point, Dennis?
Yeah, they're on the
Yeah, that's
agenda.
item 5 on the agenda. As to go.
I just want to make sure everybody got all the work we've done.
All committee members. Alec, did you get a copy of that?
Yes, thank you. This is Alec.
Madam Chair, might suggest that we put out a call for any suggestions that the subcommittee might, topics that the subcommittee might also need to work on in the coming weeks.
Yeah, can we actually do that call to the audience,
Yes.
or do you want that from the whole committee?
As long as we're drawing those people in to get the comments so that we can address them in subcommittee.
So let's go ahead and go through what we've actually worked on so that we can get comments on all of that, and then we'll solicit commentary and things that we can be working on or looking at. So if we're all comfortable with that report from the subcommittee, then we'll go ahead and move to item number 4, on the agenda, which is to go through the definitions. So those came for anyone who looked at the packet ahead of the meeting that Clayton sent out, which I can't look at because I don't have access to the internet and I left it on the internet. Sorry. Okay. You have it though, the current one?
This was the draft that came through on the 8th, before the 8-1 meeting.
8-1. So we made an addition to it.
Okay, that came out.
Clayton just barely sent it. My apologies. I always forget we don't have internet in this.
Okay, there was 2 more items that was developed area in residential zone and light trespass. And then prior to that, there was a,
Okay, it's okay. I have it on my phone.
yeah,
Okay,
the
and
chapter.
so
2 definition.
we have made a number of changes, not just since the last meeting in June, but since the meeting in May to the definitions, starting to clarify our definitions to make them easier to understand. And so some primary changes that we've been working on have been to developed area, light trespass. So in particular, anyone who hasn't had an opportunity to see developed area, it looks like actually though, Clayton, I'm sorry that the draft that went out just barely doesn't have the new definitions of developed area in it.
Correct. So
Okay.
what we sent out yesterday was the same as what was posted last week.
Okay,
So to help
okay, that's,
reduce confusion, we didn't change what was posted last week.
okay. I, for some reason, was looking at the wrong document then. Okay. But I would like to talk about those today. Okay. Mhm. I have the new the 2 that I've worked on in any case. So.
Here.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so those are the ones that got sent out. So 2 primary changes that we have been working on since this document. So since this last draft of the document were to create definitions for developed area in a commercial zone versus developed area in a residential zone. So that really helps particularly individuals who are working on residential property to understand what that means. It can feel really different and very confusing. So you'll also notice when we get to the lumens tables, we've done a separation there as well to help with that confusion that we've been hearing about. Is it okay if I read this out? Okay. For everyone. Okay. So for developed area in a residential zone specifically, right now what we're working with is areas that have been transformed or improved for human habitation and activity, including the building footprint, house, garages, decks, and other attached structures, impervious surfaces, driveway, tennis court, and landscaped areas. In a residential zone, developed areas are recognized in this code for lighting as 100% of the parcel up to 1 acre, 70% of the parcel greater than 1 acre and up to 2 acres, 60% of the parcel up to 3 acres, and 50% of the parcel up to 4 acres, with a maximum developed area of 2 acres, or that's about 87,120 square feet for parcels that are 5 acres or larger. This does not apply to residential parcels of 1 acre or less, which should exclusively use the specific table that starts out all of the tables. So we're starting there as a point for really giving people an explanation of how to use the table for residential, which we're hoping is going to help. Dennis, do you have thoughts?
No, because I haven't heard that until right now. So I'll have to.
Well, you have. So the first part of it really is just almost identical to the International Dark Sky or Dark Sky International definition and Health and Human Services definitions of what developed area means. It's the second half where we've developed the table with the percentages that I
Yeah.
thought you might want to talk about.
No, I don't have any opinions on it at this point.
Rest of the committee, Craig, Rob.
yeah, I read it. I mean, it's pretty much about what we talked about in regards to, cutting up those larger than 1 acre parcels.
That was what I'm hearing, Robbie. There's a sliding scale on the lumens or the lumen cap based on acreage. Be graphically, like show something, I like pictures.
Right.
I'm not
so
understanding
we're
your
not going
verbiage,
to
Amy.
give someone who has a 5 acre parcel, right, that they can only use the exact same number of lumens as somebody on a 1/2 acre parcel.
Let's
Right.
cut us a little.
People online. are
Here's
not-
a guy, well, they can take a picture. Here's 5 acres.
Mhm.
You know, here's a 1 acre site. So what are you telling me that there's a difference?
It's the percentage of the developed area, so
Okay, so I have a house, I have
sorry, let me just kind of tell you, so the lumens cap applies to the developed area of a site,
DA.
not the whole of the site, right?
For the developer.
So a parcel that is less than 1 acre, right, is going to generally speaking have a significant amount of developed area because it's very small.
Oh, 50%.
Um,
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Up here, so we say that the maximum amount of developed area for a residential property can be 2 acres, 2 total acres of developed area for
Maximum.
lumens.
So are you limiting the amount of developable area?
No, we can't
By
limit
putting-
the amount of developed area, but we can limit the amount of lumens, so they can only use 2 acres to find their lumens cap.
Why is that?
Let's say they run out and then now they can't put this little chicken shack over here because they've used up their 2 acres by only having less than 50%.
No, they might have 2 acres of developed area, but not have lights on all of that developed area. Does that make sense? Everybody's not lighting their whole garden.
Okay, well, no, you're putting caps on. Bigger something is, the less light. you
No,
have.
okay. 2 acres of space that can have lumens attached to it.
I'd consider that an adverse condition.
It's the same thing that exists on the commercial side.
An adverse condition. It's an adverse condition. I don't know if that's. You're league, you know legalese a little more than I do.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be an adverse condition?
We have always, I think pretty consistently, if we have, my name is Priscilla Storm, Diamond Ventures. We have always consistently wanted a lumen allowance for the owned property because the amount of development is fungible and changeable over time. If you have 5 acres and it only has 2 acres of lighting, you are limiting development. You are not allowing or respecting private property rights for someone who may want to develop 4 acres of their 5 acres or 4.5 acres of their 5 acres. That parcel can be subdivided down to individual
Lots.
35,000 square foot lots and put on sewer. So I don't, the developable acreage within a boundary owned tax parcel lot is not going to stay static or constant over time. So the lumen allowance should be for the property boundaries of the taxed parcel, not the developed area.
I don't have them fully formulated yet, but I'm closer to Priscilla on this issue than I am to you at this
Well,
point.
honestly, you're the one who developed this idea
I
for the
don't-
percentages.
I don't remember doing that. I didn't
It
do
was not
that.
me.
I didn't do it.
That
That was a proposal from, I think it came from Dan. And the idea was that the county, I believe, was having trouble determining what a developed area would be for various types of residential uses. And because it's so hard to draw that line, what is the developed area? What was put forth was that there could be a simple formula that says if your lot is this size, this much of it can be the developed area. Now,
You just sparked my memory.
I
and
think-
understand.
I think where I would fit on this issue would be that that could be a way that developed area could be determined, but perhaps it should not be the required way that it would be determined. And that if somebody has a property and within other development laws, zoning laws and whatever, they can develop more of their single residential parcel, then I think if that exceeds what that formula would have given, I think they should be able to use more light on
I
it.
think I think I now remember what the concern was. I don't remember, I don't think it came from Dan, honestly. We'll have to go back to the notes to find out where it really came from. But I think was that the concern was that if we assign it to a whole parcel and say it's 5 acres, but then they only develop 1 acre, they could take the total amount of lumens assigned to a 5 acre parcel and put it all on 1 acre, and then later say, I am now developing the rest of this, the other 4 acres, and I need more lumens. As opposed to understanding that this is the total amount for a 5 acre parcel. You don't have any more lumens. This is the total number of lumens.
And I agree, I agree with that I think there's potentially 2 approaches. But one of the things that has happened in commercial is you have had an anchor come in and use a disproportionate share of the assigned lumens in a retail shopping center. And then a pad comes in and needs lighting. And you actually, when you go through the process, you have to remove lights from the grocery store in order to reallocate them to the pad to stay within the allowance that is assigned to the entire tax parcel or development site. The same would be true in a large lot or rural residential. If you assign it to 5 acres and they use it all in 1 acre and then they want to come back in and need something to get permitted, they would have to reallocate the light within that site to stay within the allowance for the 5 acres.
Yeah, on that point, that's true, and I think that's okay. The problem is if instead of doing subsequent development on the same parcel, they do a split. If you had that 5 acre parcel, they use the entire 5 acres worth of light on 1 acre. Then they decide to split. Then how much light can be used on the other? And that's the thing that the interest of protecting the observatories is concerned about, that it could get out of control that way.
Yeah,
I'm not sure how to solve it.
Yeah, I don't know
It's
how
part of the
frequently
split.
those lot splits happen, but it would have to be solved at that point. You know, you would have to. do
I think it does happen from time to time. I know in the Catalina foothills, there were some historical 10 acre properties that have stayed that way for quite a long time. And then the old historic house and it maybe gets 2 acres and there's 8 more 1 acre lots developed.
Yeah.
And that scenario, of course, the thing is in that neighborhood, that's pretty much happened everywhere by now. But elsewhere, it can occur not more on the fringes of development, and that's what the astronomy is worried
The
about.
other concept that I thought is that if you do have to come up with some way to give an allowance to the entire tax parcel, but you also want to create an incentive for the unlit portions of any site. So potentially you could have 2 different allocations of lumen allowance for the lit area and the unlit area. So you would have a lower lumen allowance for the unlit area, but it would still be something, you know, the undeveloped area of a site. And then you would know if it was all developed, it would be a not to exceed amount, but.
Madam Chair, we have a question online.
Okay, sure.
Chris Duffner, why only 2 acres for lumens is what they're asking?
Yes. Can I talk or do I have to use the text? Can I talk?
that's just a starting place, Chris. So like we said, we had to get to somewhere to figure out what the amounts would be and what limits would look like that wouldn't overlight space, and create too much upward glare. And so that's where we started, right? This is always just an ongoing conversation, but that's kind of where we got to for today.
So is it just for developed acreage though?
Sorry, so the 2 acres was the limit as of this conversation for developed area, how much developed area could be used to determine the total lumens for a parcel.
Okay.
So it would be 2 total acres of developed area on parcels larger than 5 acres.
Even if the whole 5 acres was somehow developed?
Right.
Okay.
I'm not sure of a lot of instances that would occur. That would,
I agree with you. I guess I just don't understand. So if they're not developing the whole 5 acres and they've just developed 1 acre, they can only put 1 acre
they
of
have,
lumen cap, right?
right? So if they only develop 1 acre, then they would be limited to the cap of 1 acre's worth of lumens.
I guess I just don't understand why we're limiting a residential owner to only 2 acres if they've fully developed 5.
That's something for us to consider. Sure, Rob?
Robbie's, I agree, Chris. At what point, Clayton, do these get run by the city or county attorney for validity?
They have not yet. This is,
At what point in the process?
at what point will they?
Yeah.
Following the release of the final draft, we will pass it to the city attorneys during the 30-day public comment period.
Just curious on that. And then back to divvying up parcels into smaller and smaller pieces. You got the ADUs that the city's pushing. I don't know if the county's pushing on those. You've got more infill development. We have a housing crisis. So I think we're just gonna have more lot splits and potential issues with trying to maximize parcels. I'm not talking about up in the foothills where you got 5 acres, and I don't see it happening there, but across most of city of Tucson jurisdictions, some of Pima counties. So it's a little counterintuitive on trying to make further restrictions on parcels.
Right, so I do want to make sure, so I'm gonna go to you, Dennis, in just a second. I want to make sure everyone understands who's in this room and on this call, because what I'm hearing is, I just want to make sure everyone understands this committee can't determine how much of a parcel you can develop. That is not in our purview, so that's not the discussion we're having here today. And I keep sort of hearing, why are we limiting how much area a person can develop? And that's not what we're talking about. So a developed area can be all sorts of things. And I just want to clarify, and Clayton, please correct me if I'm wrong. Developed area can be all sorts of things for human habitation and activity. You could have a 1 acre long driveway. You're probably not lighting your entire driveway, right? But that is considered developed area, right? Okay. The outside of, your garage might take up, and I have met people who have like a garage that takes up a whole acre. The inside is lighted. There's 1 light on the outside. Okay. So we're talking about things that take up space, but not necessarily all of those things require lighting, right? So when we are talking about lumens and what the total number of acres is that you can use to determine your lumens cap for your property. So developing, having a garden that's 1.5 acres that doesn't require any lighting, right? That's not going to stop you from putting lighting on the part where you actually need lighting at. So I want to make sure there's an understanding there. Sure, Rob.
I fully get all that. The city and the county, I believe, have developable area percentages based on your zoning.
That is correct.
Okay, so that is, what's the word I use? So there's already a cap, and we, Lighting Code Committee is looking at putting a further cap. I think you should look into what the developable areas are existing.
Right, so we're not putting a cap on how much area someone can develop, so the building code is.
Why not? There's already a number out there, Okay, so why don't you use that number? You're making up a new number that's associated with lighting.
Happy to look at that. I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing and
We get it.
we're not talking about the same thing today. So I think we'll go to Dennis and then we're gonna probably, try to wrap it up because I think we're not having the same conversation in this room today.
Clayton, did you have,
This is Clayton. I just wanted to suggest that my understanding of what was trying to be achieved with this this part of the proposed code is going back to if you develop 1 acre of a 5-acre lot example, what I understood was trying to be addressed is not taking 5 acres worth of lumen allowance and concentrating it into the 1 acre that you're developing, right? So it is my understanding, and I hope that helps with this definition. It's not necessarily trying to limit how much you can develop. It's trying to make sure that if you have a large lot, right, that you're not using the entire lot as the lumen budget calculation. Is that a
Right.
correct
I think
assessment?
that's clear. I think that's clear, Clayton. But when the idea came up that when you got a 5-acre lot, you're only allowed 2 acres of lumens. That is putting an adverse condition on a 5-acre lot. Okay? The county code on that, I don't know what, is it 2 acres or 3 acres, 4 acres? I don't know how much you can technically develop.
I want to bring up something. So the 2 acres would be like 40% of the total allowable lumens. Would that sound better? Instead of 2 acres, because that's what they're trying to do is make sure you don't split that. And like they were saying, they come up with a whole bunch of lumens just for that 5-acre parcel. So if it wasn't 2 acres, it's equivalent to 40%. And we have those percentages throughout the rest of this, I think.
And
If I had a 5-acre lot and I divided it up into 5 1-acre lots, and I'm still, I
And you're
only can
limited
have
to the 1 acre.
40% of the 5 acres?
No, you do the 1 acres
so
But
this,
what if they've already lit the entire lot with?
at
5
100% of the 5 acres. Right. That's what the whole goal is, to avoid somebody with 100,000 lumens on a small parcel and then split it and 100,000 on the next one and so on. Those numbers aren't exact. That was the whole idea. And then also 70% is to limit it to match the grading limits. So people aren't out there grading over just to get more lumens, like grading a great big parking lot area. The only reason to just create developed area.
I'm sorry, did we get your name?
Mark Massick, I should have said that.
Thanks, Marsh. It's okay. Dennis, sure.
I think we're in completely the wrong place to be having this discussion. You don't put a code requirement in a definition. That's what we're trying to do. And we need to rethink what we're going to do. We need a definition to just say what developed area is, but it should not be establishing a code requirement at that point. What we're really talking about here is how we're applying lumen caps. And I think we need to move whatever those rules are out of the definition chapter and move them into the lumen cap part of the code.
We can certainly look at that. I didn't really look at it as a code requirement. It was more of a definition explaining what it meant so that it matches up with the code requirement, which is later.
I think we just need to make sure that that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Because I think most of the people in the room, based on what I'm hearing in the comments, are hearing that the actual code requirement is in the definitions. And that's not good code to code together that.
Oh, we have a online.
Yeah, we have a question. Medicare counselor says, does the definition regarding residential distinguish common areas from private lots?
Common areas mean like multifamily and that is different.
could you clarify your question, please?
You're on mute.
Just a moment. You're on mute. We can't hear you.
I can't unmute her.
You'll need to unmute yourself. There should be a little microphone button toward the top of your screen.
Okay, did that work?
Yes, yeah, we can hear you.
Splendid, thank you. So I live in an HOA. The common areas, well, it includes places like where the pool is and the tennis courts. And it also includes the various areas that we landscape, we the HOA landscape, as compared to where my house is. And I have my property, my front yard, my backyard, and so forth. So because I don't have the language that you're discussing in front of me, I'm just, on the fly here trying to figure out whether that distinction, which is really important for us in terms of responsibility, is captured in what you're working on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think that I can hear some of the subcommittee talking next to me, and I think you've asked a very excellent question, and we need to consider that for you. And thank you for bringing it up. Could you tell us your name, please?
Certainly. My name is Eloise Gore, and I tried to log in with my Outlook account in my own name this time, but I never got let into the meeting, so I was stuck with coming in as Medicare counselor. But my name is Eloise, Eloise, Gore, Gore, and I live in an HOA in the foothills, and I very much appreciate being able to listen in and participate. Thank you.
And thank you, Eloise, for bringing that to our attention. I think we have not considered that.
Yeah, and this is Dennis. So what I'm hearing is that we really need to decide on the definition for those areas, the common area that's associated with an otherwise, like in a residential subdivision, there are individual residential lots and then there's common areas. Are those common areas commercial or are they residential?
They're definitely residential because they're part of the HOA. I mean, the way we think of it, it's residential because in the case of HOAs, this is really what's available to the people who live in the community and their guests. This is not a place for the public.
To make sure that what we're allowing in residential for lighting is appropriate for those common areas as well. And it may be that it isn't, or it may be that it is, and we haven't studied that.
Most of those areas can be 100% development. Something like that usually. It's gonna be landscape, all the common areas, landscaping, driveways, tennis courts, all that's developed. So
Right.
you guys get 100%,
Yeah.
and that's not allowable per the current definition.
Right. That would be a problem. Thank you.
That have like undeveloped area that's split off. And it's, again, it's really complicated.
Sticky area.
I think
What-
that's a complete other area that needs to be studied.
There are common areas that are undeveloped because even though it's part of the greater HOA, it's an area that we are not allowed by Pima County to develop. So it's still just as it was before the community was developed, and we are required to keep it that way. That's one kind of common area. The other kind of common area, as you're understanding, is where we actually have planted something or put in lighting or have a tennis court or a swimming pool or something like that. So those distinctions are so important for us in figuring out how the lumen cap works.
I've made a note on that. So Eloise, thank you again, because we're going to go back and study that. Our subcommittee will make it a priority. I also live in an HOA and I'm on the subcommittee and I didn't think of that. So thank you for bringing it to our attention.
A pleasure.
Or do we have any additional comments on the developed area definition?
Dennis, I have only that in all the descriptions of those areas associated with residential, I haven't seen the word yard used. And I'm concerned that there may be some over restrictive of developed area as a result of that. There could be a yard that doesn't have landscaping per se, but it could still be an enclosed area. And I think we need to really look at the words carefully. whether we should say landscaping versus landscaped areas, things like that. But if it's gonna go to subcommittee, I think we can work out those details there.
Yeah, I think we're gonna
Yeah.
have to do that.
One more thing,
Sure.
impervious areas was brought up, a lot of driveways are gravel. Is that considered part of an improved area or not?
That's in the all the current definitions. Anything that's an impervious surface is considered developed area.
What if it's a gravel driveway or simply a graded driveway?
I think that would be considered for human habitation, so it would be considered a developed area. If you are purposely altering it for the use of some form of human habitation, that would fall under the Health and Human Services as well as county definitions of developed.
Madam Chair, we have Alec Zimmerman online.
Sure. Hi, Alec. Don't forget to unmute yourself, please.
No problem. This is Alex Zimmerman. First want to thank the subcommittee for putting these definitions together. Appreciate the updates on that. I just wanted to check in to see what the next step is. Is this going back to subcommittee, or will these updated definitions be available in the notes for this meeting?
This is Clayton. The discussion from today will be included in the meeting minutes to the greatest extent possible. A lot has been discussed, and it won't be a comprehensive list of everything that was said. But I believe the subcommittee will be reviewing the definitions that the committee decide need further investigation at their next meeting.
This is Alec. Sounds good. Just wanted to get the idea. So then before the next committee meeting, we'll get the updated definitions is the idea.
Yes.
Yes, so
Perfect.
we are trying to get documents posted a week in advance. Unfortunately, some of the documents weren't created until last Friday. But assuming that we can get the documents ready to post a week in advance, then we will post them for the public.
This is Alec. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thanks, Alec. Okay, so I think it's safe to say subcommittee needs to take this back. We've heard a lot of really good comments today, a lot of really good input, so we need to take it back and take another look at it. And see how it can be improved to resolve for all of these issues. So I'd like to move on. There was one other one that we had added. Was it in the?
I have a question as
Sure.
it relates to.
Could you say your name, please? Priscilla, I know it's you, but.
Priscilla Storm. Is there going to be any discussion today about developed area in a commercial designation?
No. So we won't be discussing that definition. It's already in the code. And so that was at the last meeting, we discussed that. Mhm. But I assure you, there will be a public comment period. So when you see, what has come out of the last meeting going forward, then you'll be able to comment on that as well. And then at the next meeting, you have an opportunity as well. The definitions, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not in my documents. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about today is that we mentioned light trespass in our code, but only very briefly, and it is not in our definition section. And so our intent is to place a definition in our definition. So in the draft that posted for the public, light trespass is not included in that definition. So I think probably what we'll do is we'll just save it for next time. We just want you to know that we are working on that. There is a really strong definition of what light trespass means already in the Dark Sky International documents that is accepted, generally speaking, by most other organizations, IEEE, IES. They have very similar definitions. So it's more for clarification what it means, because we somehow have it in our code, but haven't had a definition of what it means. So we'll be working on that as well. Do we have any other comments on the definitions that were posted?
Rob,
Sure, Rob.
so draft I have just mentioned developed area.
Mhm.
We talked about developed area residential. And there was also supposed to be a developed area commercial.
Great. Priscilla just asked that question.
Again, I'm re-asking it because I'm not sure that your answer is correct. So I don't see the definition.
It's at the very end of this page, don't
I don't have.
No, so
There's some
we talked about it
ambiguity.
at the last meeting, but we're not ready to talk about it today. So subcommittee has not had a chance to finish that work.
Commercial.
So correct. We
Okay.
talked about it at the last meeting and got all of the input. And there will be, documents that will come out for the next meeting and then a public comment period
Okay.
for discussion on that as well.
So it's coming back up for discussion.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's only residential. Correct. Do we have any other questions from the definitions that were posted?
Yeah, this is Dennis.
Sure. They were not posted.
Although they were not posted,
We're talking about
oh,
these.
I and that I think if we're gonna take it back to subcommittee, we can deal with there. But one in particular is the published definition of a fully shielded light fixture. And quite frankly, that wording is really, really confusing. And I decided to ask Google's AI what a fully shielded light fixture was, and I got back words that were a whole lot easier to understand. And so I'm gonna advocate we rewrite that section. I think it'll be easier for everybody to understand.
I have a question. I had submitted in definitions for house side shield. Had that been looked at?
I'm sorry, we didn't hear you. Could you say your name for the record and then can you?
This is Rick Hollander. I had submitted some inputs and proposals to the code a while back. And I had sent some to the full committee, the subcommittee. And one of the proposals was the definition for house side shielding. Had that been looked at?
Do you know when you sent that? We haven't had a public comment period for comments like that since last September.
Clayton, do you remember? Because I went through you submitted, the last time I was at a meeting, which was 2 meetings ago, I gave a full copy to one of the members of this committee, and I've also sent stuff to Dennis, and I thought I'd send some to you also.
I have not received those. So we'll go back and make sure we're receiving all of our emails. I was not specifically at the meeting 2 meetings ago. I was attending from afar, so I will reconvene with the subcommittee.
All right, thank you.
I think I did get stuff from Rick. I can forward it to you.
Thanks. All right. Do we have any other, okay, so let's go back and say we're going to revisit the fully shielded light fixture. This is me. I'm just gonna read it really fast to myself. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we're already there. I'm already with you. I'm 5 words in, already there. We're gonna Gemini that. Already there. Okay, so as Dennis mentioned, we are gonna relook at the fully shielded light fixture definition. That is confusing. Sure, it's a candela. I know what it is. I'm just being sassy. Okay, can I borrow it? I'll give it back.
Yes.
I'll give it back. I'll give it back. Okay. Thank you. All right. Do we have any other questions or comments on the draft definitions that were posted? Anybody online? Nope.
Nothing online.
Okay. All right, then we will move to what is sure to be the most exciting item on our agenda today. The lumens tables. And I'm gonna hand that over to you, Dennis. It's your show.
Okay, so I did some work on the commercial part of lumen tables, and that's all I'm gonna talk about. And going into this thing, you know, I had some issues with our present lumen tables, which is table 401.1. The lumens listed are not really logical or consistent in some ways in the existing code. And so I was hoping maybe we could help with that. But the other thing is that, you know, our committee is tasked with trying to protect astronomy and protect the dark sky for other than astronomy as well, just to protect the dark sky. And with the change in the predominant light sources moving away from sodium-based sources to LED, it has changed the amount of blue light that's being emitted by the artificial lighting. And that's really, as we have more blue light emitted, and the blue light contributes to the sky glow. And it does so, you know, more proportionally than just the lumen ratings of the light. So that's why we felt there's been a need to reduce the amount of lumens. But, you know, so I looked at this thing and said, well, we've got multiple things that we can look at. And the first thing was that we're not just changing lumen caps in the present code. We have reduced the allowable color temperature from 3,500 Kelvin to 3,000 Kelvin. That helps a little bit. As you go higher in the Kelvin temperature, your percentage of blue light goes up, so that helps some. The other thing which I think is going to make a major reduction in the total amount of light is the requirement that we've added in new section 404 for motion sensor controls. And the motion sensor controls will require a light reduction of 50% for larger lit areas like parking lots that are oftentimes fully lit but unoccupied, particularly late at night. So those by themselves will make a major contribution. So one thing that, you know, we talked about in subcommittee was, well, maybe that's enough. And then the lumen cap table just stays the way it is, except we really don't believe that's enough. So then we've gone on and looking at other options, which is the simplest one would be to just apply a factor for the new technology. And we tried that earlier on. The factors were more severe than they are now. The lumen numbers were way lower and there was a huge amount of pushback for that. So what we essentially came to was the idea of looking at the photonic potential factor, which is in a paper authored by Richard Green. And essentially what it amounts to is applying a multiplier of 0.74 to 3,000 Kelvin sources to equate the ability to see under 3,000 K light versus being able to see under high pressure sodium light. You only need 74% as much light of 3,000 K to see as well as you would if it was lit with high pressure sodium. And that would be an appropriate factor. But it gets more difficult when you compare it to amber LED sources, because amber LED is not as benign to the dark sky as low pressure sodium is. And there are different kinds of amber LED. There's a narrowband LED, which is pretty good, but unlike low pressure sodium, which essentially is a spectral line of orange light, it's still a bell-shaped curve. There's some more blue in it than there was in true low pressure sodium. And the phosphor-coated amber has a wider bell curve, has more blue light. And so applying a factor there is probably doesn't do enough to help the dark sky. So what we've done in our lumen cap table and analyzed that way is we're saying that a multiplier compared to an HPS, a high pressure sodium value, if it's a PC amber source, you should have 1.36 times as much light. And if it's a narrowband amber, 1.79. And those increases compared to high pressure sodium actually reduce what was in the 2012 code, the option 1, which is mostly LPS. And that's where they have some fairly high allowable lumens. Those numbers are going to end up coming down in this new proposal, and that's why they are down, to try to, whatever option happens, to try to really protect the dark sky. So with those concepts in mind, you know, I took our present table and I applied those options and we came up with what the lumen caps might look like. But in the most common application, we're down to area E3, option 3. The total lumens is now 175,000 lumens. It would drop to 129,500, or maybe we would round it to 130,000. That's a pretty significant drop still. And the concern is that by itself would not be tolerated very well. Taking into the idea that, well, we're already getting lumen reductions because of the motion controls and the better color temperature, maybe a better way to go is to put an intermediate option in, which would go to a better white LED source, really a more yellow LED source, but not all the way to orange. And that would be the 2200 Kelvin LED. And coming up with a scheme that by using that source, we could stay with the lumen caps that we presently have. That is, if you're 100% full cutoff, you could have 250,000 lumens. If you're going to have some uplight on your project, then you'd be at the 175,000 lumens, same as now under our option 3. And then because we got a lot of feedback from users that they like the ability to have an option to do 100% full cutoff, that we would extend that into our mostly amber option and keep it on the 2200K option. And then we would still have an option if you want to go with 3000 Kelvin for everything. That would be lower lumens per acre and lower than the 0.74 factor to try to incentivize people to go to the warmer 2200 Kelvin. But we're not saying it would have to be 100% 2200 Kelvin. There would be the ability to have some 3000 Kelvin light source, the same way that in our present code, if you chase more lumens by going low pressure sodium, you were still allowed to have a certain amount of white light, meaning 3500 Kelvin or lower white light. You could still blend that with a mostly low pressure sodium. Now we're proposing that you could blend up to the 3000 Kelvin LED with the 2200, and that could be up to 20% of the lighting on a project. So the way we think this could be implemented and could really be quite effective in terms of reducing sky glow is that we're moving most of the light that would be used on a site. If someone takes that option, they can still light all the way to their 250,000 lumens if they want to, but only 50,000 lumens of that is 3000 Kelvin, which could be used for decorative lighting on the building, decorative lighting anywhere they want to use decorative lighting. But then the big parking areas would go to the warmer light. So we thought that was a better option to throw out. And then we are restricting the 100% 3000 Kelvin to little tighter limits. Because frankly, it does more damage to the sky than that 0.74 factor implies. And so we're trying to do that, but really not offering a change in lumen cap for someone that can move to the warmer LEDs. So the result of that is the table that got published for commercial, where there's really overall, what we're calling 3 options and an A and a B version of each. The option 1A, you would do mostly amber LED, but you could have some non-amber that could be any allowable color temperature up to 3000 Kelvin. And option 1B is you could have some uplight, but option 1A, you have to be 100% fully shielded. Then option 2A is what I just described, to where most of your light would be limited to 2200 Kelvin, but up to 20% of it could go to 3000 Kelvin. And then you'd have 2A is the highest lumen amount, same as our present option 3 lumen cap. If you're 100% fully shielded. Option 2B is a lower lumen, 175,000 in E3 if you're using some uplight or unshielded light on the project. And then option 3A and 3B are allowing to go to 3000 lumen sources instead of limiting at 2200, and giving a fully shielded option or a option where you're not fully shielded. And so that's how this table developed. Now, one of the things that came out of all of that is that we did not really adjust the lumen caps lower in the E1C, E1B, E1A areas. They remained where they are in the 2012 code. Those numbers are so low already that we felt that we couldn't take them any lower. They're quite limiting on how much light you can use in those areas. So what's been more affected by it is areas E2, E3A, and E3. So that's how this came about. And it looks like we're getting some hands raised, so.
All right.
Let's
start here.
My name is Maura Raffensperger, Maura, RAFFENSPERGER. What is fully shielded? So in particular, in our complex, we have carports, and there are lights that are under the carports. Are those fully shielded?
Mostly not.
Okay.
Depends how close they are to the edge, and is that fixture similar to this, where you have no lens that falls down below the bottom of the fixture?
Now,
Or are they unshielded, so the bulb is here, you can see it all the way around the fixture?
they are fluorescent bulbs and they are horizontal to the structure.
Can you see the bulb?
When you, yes, you can see the bulb.
It's the bottom of the lens here at this point, or are you seeing the bulb down here at this point?
You're seeing the bulb below.
Then it's not fully shielded.
What is that called?
Unshielded.
Unshielded, okay. I thought
There was like a
Sorry.
middle where it's like there's some cover, but not all of it versus a naked.
partially shielded.
Yeah, let me add to it a little bit. In our present code and where we'd be going in the future, the canopy by itself does not make the shielding. It's always talking about the light fixture itself. So to be a fully shielded light fixture, it would have to be a fixture where the light coming out of the fixture does not occur at an upward angle above horizontal.
Okay,
And that's oftentimes done just by the design of the fixture. If you have a completely flat lensed fixture and a solid housing, just by observation, you can know it's fully shielded. It's a little more difficult when it doesn't quite fit that dimension. Then you can get photometry reports by the fixture manufacturers that tell you where all that light goes. And you can determine if there's light emitted above the horizontal, then it's not fully shielded. Now, it's important to remember, though, our code is written for new construction. So this is not going to be retroactive on an existing property saying you have to change out old lights that you have. It could be if the existing lights on the property were never properly permitted in their original installation, and that when they were installed, they did not meet code because there was no permit process to ensure that they would. Then a complaint process could result in a non-conforming light having to be changed. But if it was a light that conformed with code when it was installed, it's grandfathered in.
okay. But is it grandfathered in if you have to change it because the fixtures have aged out or whatever?
Madam Chair, this is Clayton with the City of Tucson. I can help respond to that. The lighting code as it currently exists applies to replacement fixtures. So if you're replacing a fixture, the code would apply to that.
Okay,
Now, it's very, very difficult to enforce people doing work themselves. If they go to a home improvement store, buy something off the shelf and do the work, and oftentimes Pima County or the City of Tucson are never notified. So just want to point that out. And then also for anybody here, I wanted to also clarify that the current code refers to them as full cutoff. So we've got two terms here that mean the same thing, just for clarity, so we're all on the same page. Full cutoff is the current term for what we are now going to be calling fully shielded.
okay, and just one more question. So if we have a pole light that has a ceramic cover with a top on it and then just holes in this side, is that fully covered or not considered fully covered?
Do you mean
No.
that the light is coming out the sides of the
Side,
fixture?
yeah.
That would not be considered fully shielded because that light can go somewhere other than straight down.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
And Madam Chair, we have a couple of people online that have something to say as well as a question in the chat. I think Alec has had his hand up first.
Other questions over here.
Okay, we'll go back and forth. So, Christina, if you want to let Alec
Sure.
come in, then we'll shoot back and forth across the room.
Alec?
Perfect. This is Alex Zimmerman. First off, I want to thank Dennis for putting this together. I know it's a very difficult task, so it's also awesome to see some progress on this. My question is, have these lumen levels been used on an example project for each of these options for each of the lighting areas as they've decreased? My thought is that we need to make sure that, of course, astronomy and dark sky is important, but safety is also something that we should be concerned about as well in meeting the IES recommended light levels.
Alex, Craig Barron here. I believe the answer to that question is not yet.
Okay, and that's totally fine. And maybe one thing that I would recommend is, can we request the lighting consultant provide those calculations if they're still on board for this project?
Clayton, that's a question for you.
I don't know how you
Okay.
could do that because every project is a custom project and they're all over the place. I can only tell you that in my work, I design various kinds of projects. Sometimes I run into the current lumen caps and they're very, very limiting. Other times I have so much headroom under our current code that could cut it to to 40%, and I would still have no trouble complying, and it still provided good lighting design. It's all over the place because every building, every design is different. We're all doing every job's a custom job, it seems. Even if it's a repeated building, you know, Walmart goes on a different site. It's a different Walmart from the last Walmart, and the values apply differently. Generally speaking, I'm doing projects that are well below the current lumen caps, and I'm not having any complaints with inadequate outside lighting, at least in area E3. I have great difficulty in the E1 areas getting enough light.
This is Alec, and Dennis, I would agree with you. I think that's what I see on my side. And you're 100% correct. It's difficult to say, okay, well, what is a standard project that we can use as an example? But I think it would be, you know, more information that we can look at if we do, say, a 5,000 square foot office with 20 parking spots, or just something that would give us a good gut check on these values.
I'm going to go ahead and recognize Dr. Green.
Just for an answer to this question, and I have other questions later, but Craig is of course right. We don't have examples with these new kinds of lights in Metro Tucson with PC Amber and narrowband amber. But Flagstaff has been using this lighting now for some years. And so if you wanted to see lumens levels and their visibility under PC Amber and some narrowband amber, we have a neighbor city that where we could look at these examples and see how people are reacting to the visibility of those projects.
Richard, and they have much lower lumens caps than we do. So we would be seeing them then also at a much lower level, correct?
So their brightest ones are about equivalent to our zones E2 or E3A. So,
Okay, so
so
their brightest one, so it would match across, so we
so
could
you
get.
could see what E2 looked like under the new kind of lighting and decide. So we do have some examples if we wish to reach out.
Would you be able to help me get in contact with the people that could give me that?
Sure.
And this is Alec. That's a great point to see what, you know, something that's installed. What I was recommending is to use photometric software to calculate these values to make sure they meet the IES recommended light levels.
Yeah, we can certainly ask, so Clayton said the lighting consultant is still on board, so I think it would be a good idea for us to both get the photometric data, have Charles do that, as well as get an example of what it looks like in practice, and how they've been faring with it in practice, since it's already at nearly an equivalent, to understand how it's working.
This is Alec. Thank you. I appreciate everything.
This is Clayton with the city. We will certainly reach out to the lighting consultant and see what they can help us produce. Just to reiterate, it would be a sample. It wouldn't be a comprehensive example of every condition as was previously stated. It would just be a sample to demonstrate that the proposed lumen levels could be, you know, functionable in a development example. So we will request that of them.
Thank you. Okay. I'm gonna recognize Rob.
Thank you, Rob East. Few questions, Dennis. Are you able to put that whole spiel in ChatGPT and dumb it down for us? No? Okay, let's see.
We can try.
Currently, we're at 3,500 kelvins, is that correct?
Yes.
And last time I heard, projections were 3,000 K. The reduction of that. And now I'm hearing we're down to 2,200 K as an option. Is that correct? Or do we have an option at both?
So what we're saying, it's really two different parts of the code. The part on color temperature says that the coolest or highest K rating that can be used for general lighting is 3,000 Kelvin. So that becomes the upper limit. The 2012 code is 3,500 Kelvin. The lumen caps then are graduated based on what color temperature you choose to use. So if you choose to use 100% 3,000 Kelvin or some number even less than that, but greater than the other choices, then you're gonna be subject to what's in the new table as the option 3A or 3B, which is a lower lumen cap.
That's
If-
an
if-
approximate reduction by 20,
It's-
25, 40.
It's taking the original number, which is, hold on a second, because I've got a worksheet for that.
It's an earlier one. It's C1. C1? Next to C1? Oh,
No.
it might be that one.
No, it's in my note, these are my notes, it wasn't what was published, but I put some. Oh, wait a minute. So,
Depends on the different areas, 20,
Some of the two of them.
okay. What we have in the option 3 table, that's the published option 3 table. Those values are the 2012 lumens times 0.74 for the photopic darkness ratio, and then times 85%. So,
So you took a 74% or a 26% reduction and another reduction on top of that?
yeah. And that was to push people toward option 2, which is mostly 2200 Kelvin.
Can we get, I think it'd be nice to see what these reductions were, either the previous lumens allowed or just kind of side by side. I think that will go far with not only myself, but others to review what the.
What do you mean by previous?
2012. And we have a 2012 code, right?
Yeah.
We're gonna have a new code, or what the differences are. When I went through the sign code, I think we got up to a 25% increase on some stuff, and the percentages help others make decisions of the yay or nay, as opposed to having to read everything. Back to amber, because amber is more yellow light, do you have to, does it lessen the amount of foot candles that are on the ground? You have to increase it because of that?
It does not lessen the amount of foot candles, but it does change the way that your eye perceives or how well the eye sees for that amount of foot candles. And that was what was documented in Dr. Green's paper that was that resulted in the 0.74 factor for 3000 K. So compared to high pressure sodium, which was the baseline light source, if you have to see as well, comparing to high pressure sodium, you only need 0.74 times the high pressure sodium lumens at 3000 Kelvin.
At 3,000. What do you need? What's the percentage at 2200?
We don't have a point for that.
We don't.
If we have one for 2700 Kelvin, and that
Where I'm going, Dennis,
goes to 0.75.
I'm
And
just,
we have it for amber, and then it goes the other way. You need more light with amber.
I'm curious, going to amber, I'm gonna make an assumption that you have to increase maybe the amount of luminaires. Potentially, therefore, you're increasing the amount of electricity. Has that been looked at?
I did look into that, because if you're looking at the true amber source, so that would be our option 1 source, which is equivalent to where we were using low pressure sodium for. There you have an issue with product availability. Not all fixtures are available with the amber source. And it's even more limiting when you want to have the narrow band amber source. And so it's not just the type or style of fixtures, but it's the actual amount of light output that you can get from a fixture. So once we say you're going to be in amber, you may only be able to buy a light fixture up to, say, 10,000 lumens per fixture head. Whereas in other color temperatures, let's say the standards of 3000, 4000, 5000 Kelvin that most companies make, you can get fixtures of as much as, say, 40, 50,000 lumens, sometimes even more. So yes, when you go to amber, you have to put more light fixtures in. I don't think it increases it does, it's less effective, less lumens per watt. So the energy consumption goes up with amber. But that's the situation where we are in 2012 code and prior codes. We were with low pressure sodium, which was not a terribly efficient fixture from a lumens per watt point of view, and not very many available products. But yeah, the problem in implementing the amber by itself is you need more poles and more fixtures because they're not as bright on a unit basis. Now on 2200 Kelvin, I've got feedback from the light fixture manufacturers that they can go to higher lumen outputs similar to the 3000K fixtures. So it would not necessarily increase the number of fixtures. Would be a reduction in efficiency a little bit. So yeah, it probably uses slightly more energy.
And this is Alec. Rob, that's one reason why I'm requesting photometrics, because I think that'll tell some of the story of what you're asking.
But one more thing, I did, when we were looking at changing the code, I went back and looked at a project I built 3 or 4 years ago. I did not get even close to my lumen caps, besides on a couple smaller parcels, commercial parcels, but most of them were all definitely within. So I'm good with the switch from HPS to LED, that there's a reduction in the amount of lumens that are required. I fully concur on that. But I call it double whammy. We're taking reductions on the lumens, and we're taking reductions on the type of lighting that we're going to use. So I just want to be mindful of if we are taking a double whammy, what those percentages are.
Yeah, I mean, I really considered that when I put these together, but I will say that I've had difficulty under our current lumen caps with certain projects, and especially when you're looking at projects where your parcel is tight to the building and it's a big building, and you get more outside light on the building, it can be a problem. And as you go to a tall building, if it's got balconies that have lighting on them, that can be a real problem depending on the design of all that. Because if they get in a category where you actually have to count those lumens, you will run out of lumens really, really fast in a tall building. That means it's gonna encourage that building to be designed in a way that if you have those lights, say on balconies, you use fully shielded lights and have them located underneath the canopy. So if you have like an apartment building with multiple balconies, the balcony above becomes the canopy over the one below. You could actually count those as 0 lumens. But you change from that fully shielded light to, say, a globe light on the balcony because you want to get the pretty glow from the light. Now suddenly you got to count the lumens of every single one of those, and you'll slam to that lumen cap, even a present lumen cap, right away. There's just no way to do it. But that's what we have to do to protect the observatories.
Well, I do want to be clear, it's not just about observatories, right? You know, right next door to Whipple Observatory in Pima County, there's a ecologically sensitive bioresearch zone, right? That also has to worry about lighting because there are bugs and animals there that we have to worry about that don't exist anywhere else in the world. So there are a lot of things we have to think about. You know, so this code was primarily written for protecting observatories, but we have learned a lot as a community since we wrote the first code for this, that there's a lot more going on in our community and our ecosystem that we have to think about. I'm going to go ahead and call on our next question online.
Yeah, my name is Chris Duffner. Hey, Dennis, can you make that document that you're referring to for those factors publicly available so others can look at that?
Sorry, Chris, can you clarify? You mean the documents that he has?
So Dennis was referencing a research paper or something like that that had factors available. Can that be publicly made?
Previously, right? So we should repost them?
This is Clayton with the City of Tucson. They were posted, they can be found back in some of the previous meeting minutes, but we will repost for the next.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. And then, so has there been any, I know Dennis, you mentioned doing research on 2200K fixture availability. From my side of it, there's not a lot of manufacturers offering 2200K products. And I honestly encourage all the committee members to go try and find 2200K product because they're not widely available.
Well, that slightly contradicts what you and I talked about before, because I believe I did ask you a question about availability, and you said that you could get that as an option in some fixtures. I do know that there are available area lighting fixtures that market the 2200 Kelvin.
Yeah, there are a few. That's correct. It's something that I've started to ask manufacturers to do, and it's something that they will look into. But
PC and amber are also available. Those always be limited though to much lower, much lower lumen versions of fixtures that might otherwise have higher lumens in 3000.
For sure, because I mean, I was just looking at some stuff earlier today, and kind of to Rob's point about like increase in energy consumption and stuff like that. So going from 3000K, which is going to be the new high cooler CCT, to PC amber, there's about a 55% increase in wattage consumption, which is pretty substantial. And there's also a cost associated with that, not just on the energy consumption side of it, but a cost associated with it for product too. Because PC amber and limited wavelength amber products do cost more.
Chris, this is Amy Oliver. I'm the chair of the committee. We can certainly, of course, it's just an option. So
Sure,
there's no,
it's an option, but by limiting the 3000K to such low levels, it essentially kind of forces people into that, which has kind of been acknowledged in this meeting.
or I will play the devil's advocate. It forces people to build with more intentional design. There are places around the country and around the world that already build with this type of intentional design and manage to meet these lumens caps or get below them and still meet safety requirements. So it's important for us to remember that we are not reinventing any wheels.
I agree with you on that.
So
Definitely not reinventing the wheel, but we're also, Tucson is a smaller area that if we're trying to demand manufacturers to provide a certain CCT, I mean, there has to be demand in other parts of the country as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there is demand. We are definitely not the only place with an outdoor lighting code, and we're by far not even one of the 100 most strict lighting codes. So there's
Flagstaff is pretty strict.
definitely demand out there for these things. Oh, I'll recognize Dr. Green. And then did we have any other questions over here for comments? I just want to make sure. We hold just a second. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just have a quick question. So when I was looking at the,
I'm sorry. Will you say your name?
Fernanda Quintanilla with Diamond Ventures, when I was looking at the 2025 draft lumen table, so NA doesn't mean 0, it just means 2012?
No, it means that option would
Not
not,
apply?
you would not be able to use that option.
Okay.
So particularly, most of that is happening in the E1 areas. So for example, in the E1 area, our option 1B, mostly LED amber with some uplight, that's not allowed. In E1A, you have to use 100% fully shielded lighting. So that whole horizontal line there, option E1B, just simply is not applicable to area E1A.
And is that the same standard that was in 2012?
Yeah.
Or is this, okay.
Yeah, in E1A, there was no uplight allowed at all previously, so it's still the same way. In E1B and E1C, there's a small amount of uplight allowed in the present code, and that's continued here and without a change in the lumen caps, but it's recognizing that the light source is changing in the amber area to amber LEDs instead of low pressure sodium, which frankly is an increase in blue light compared to the LPS.
Okay. And Rob, I I did try to do today, and I spent a lot of time trying to put a table together that did a comparison between 2012, the 2024 draft, for the lumen table, and 2025. But because of the changes and wanting to have more diversity, I did have some challenges doing it. But I don't know if that's something, well, you guys are more familiar, so might have an easier time trying to put together something that kind of shows like, yay, yes, okay. So that would be super helpful as,
Does that need to go to you?
as a tool.
She shares a.
If Dr. Green would like to share it, we'll be happy to.
It's John Barentine's product, but you're right there, because of the new categories.
Yeah, like apples and fruit salad.
2,200. Some of those.
It's really not difficult at all. It's
Well, I'm just not smart, I guess.
It's only difficult if you can't find the example. 2012, option 1
Uh-huh.
is most close to 2025, option 1B.
Uh-huh.
That's where you'd make your straight comparison. And 2012, option 2 is most directly comparable to 2025, option 3A.
See, that's not obvious to
And
a
then,
normal person like me. So that's super helpful as I'm just comparing, and say, oh, wow, okay, look, see here, there's, compared to 2024 draft, they're actually allowing for more lumens. We've got just diverse, but as long as it's fully shielded, and that's easy for me to understand and share with other people who maybe share concerns.
and just to finish on that, what was 2012 option 3 in 2025 would be option 3B. So that's your direct crossover. And then what's been added in 2025 is this option 2 area, which kind of splits the two and has lumen caps that are essentially the same as the old option 2 and 3 carried into option 2A and 2B. But further restricting color temperature to try to help on the blue light by restricting the color temperature more, but keeping the lumen cap up. And if you're gonna keep the color temperature bluer, then the lumen caps goes down more. That's the fundamentally what we're trying to do. And then amber light, because LED is not as good as low pressure sodium, that's why those went down some.
Hang on just one second, Rob. We do have someone who's been waiting an awfully long time. Eloise has had her hand raised for a very long time. Just gonna let her go first.
Thank you. I just wondered if there's a definition of mostly, a percentage expressing 20 of this and 80 of that, or is it 51 and 49? Maybe that's in some other document, but this just says mostly.
Oh, yeah, it is actually the lumen value that's in the box that corresponds with that line. But
I can explain that if you want.
yeah,
She's asking something very specific about like 2B or 1B.
yeah, but in all cases, I guess I need to. It's just the use of the word mostly, but mostly applies to where there's a limit on non-amber lighting, which is 10% of the total.
Can you hear him, Eloise?
I could hear him, but I don't see where the 10% is.
Okay, so, so it's mostly, so when it says mostly 2200 Kelvin, the total lumens would have to be the total amount of all your lumens. And then the second line down, so I'm looking at option 2A, okay, if that helps. So the top line of that says total lumens, so that's everything combined. And then anything that's not 2200 Kelvin is the second line in that part of the table. So you have 50,000 total lumens that are anything other than 2200 Kelvin. So when it says mostly, it's sort of referring to that line. So it's saying you're using mostly 2200 Kelvin, and then you have that limit of 50,000 total lumens in 2A. And so that would apply in any of these sections of the table.
So where it says in option 2A, total lumens per N 22K plus greater than 22K, all lighting shall be fully shielded. So that is to me, not a scientist, just saying, well, some of it's 2200K and some of it's more than 2200K, and then it comes up with the 250,000. So
Right.
we're,
Down tells you the limit on everything that's not 2200 Kelvin. So 250 is the total of everything. And then the next line down below it that says 50,000 is the limit on everything that's not 2200 Kelvin. So you have
I see.
200,000 at 22.
Okay, wasn't clear to me, but I understand the explanation. Thank you.
This is
It's a
Clayton.
great question.
Yeah, just to help clarify in another way, in the example that was given, 50,000 of the 250 is allowed to be something other than 22K. So in this example, that's 20% of the budget. So for that example, right, mostly applies to 80% of the light.
Thank you. Great. It would be nice to have that kind of explanation somewhere in your final document for those folks who need a little extra help figuring this out. Thank you.
I haven't written the table explainers yet, so I'll take a note on that.
And this is Clayton again, that occurs that we should probably also clarify what qualifies as amber.
Yeah.
Lobbyist,
Sure.
Dr. Green, do you have a matrix already set up?
So John Barentine did, although we didn't do the cross comparisons in the way that you just suggested, Dennis. So we might want to do the deltas a different way.
So did you compare the old code versus the new code, or what was the genesis of your matrix?
We compared the new proposal to the 2012.
Okay.
And then we put in some numbers ourselves as input to the process a while ago. So we're looking at those two just for our own.
Clayton, can maybe we get Hernandez and Dr. Greens, and maybe the subcommittee can get together a spreadsheet, old versus new, so you can see what the reductions are a little bit easier?
And we should compare it in the way that Dennis suggested.
There's a lot of questions coming up that it's sort of vague. You gotta do a lot of digging to get down to the source.
So that would be up, since it's not my product, we should ask John Barentine, and if he's willing to share, that would be great.
I'll reach out.
Who's gonna ask that?
I will reach out to him.
Last side? Okay.
May I ask? First of all, those using those multipliers for visibility are great. I don't take credit for them. They are ones that John found and that we used, and it was based on a human lab study of visual acuity in those various colors of light presented in a conference. So I'll take the credit for emailing it, but not for doing the lab work. But the approach, we are very positive about in terms of including the visibility factors for the different color outputs of the different lights and giving a real premium for the less blue, the more light you get, which is basically the principle of these tables. So, that goes right along with what we had been hoping for in terms of the dark sky protection. So that's great. So I have one in the weeds question, which is truly a detail in that looking at the amber option and comparing it to HPS, there is a reward, a premium of more lumens, even compared to the HPS value before, and that's great. Zones E2 and E1C have 2 to 3 times the premium that the other zones did when you scaled it to the old code. And we were just curious, was there something special about trying to meet values in those zones or something? Because it wasn't a straight across scaling to 2012. So you did some other rationale for getting where you got.
The problem is, and I think it was the first thing I said, was that the lumen values in the 2012 code are not logical. And they don't progress to my eye in a logical way based on lighting areas, proximity to observatories, other things. And so how do we go from there? I had made some proposals in subcommittee to raise lumen caps in the E1s, and that was shut down by certain members of the subcommittee. That essentially the only way we could move forward was to maintain the E1s as they were. So that became a reason why E1 essentially is unchanged.
Well, that's odd.
So nevertheless, the bulk of the new lighting is in an E3. So I think we need to do something about E3 or you're gonna lose that sky.
It's where the most light is in, so yes.
Madam Chair, this is Clayton with the City of Tucson. To the point that was just discussed about not a straight line reduction, I wanted to also point out the last table in the attachment also is not a straight line reduction because this considers much smaller lots, if I understand correctly.
Yeah, but so that, I think you're talking about the table that shows the percentages across. So I think we'll skip that one today because since we've talked about it with the definition, I don't think we really need to look at that. And, go back to that conversation because that's really literally what that is, that 401.1.2B. Now we're getting into ridiculous nomenclature for the table, so we'll have to address that later. But it's the 401.1.2A is residential zoning. And so we have seen some mild decreases there as well, or significant decreases in some places, trying to keep numbers similar in the E1 zone so that we're not getting so low you can't have light on a property, but also recognizing that that danger is still there for an observatory or for a biologically sensitive ecozone. And particularly, and you could have called me out and that would have been fine. Dennis said certain members of the committee, and I was like, me, it's okay, big shining neon sign, partially because, try to understand that observatories don't have a way to block that. So the biologically sensitive ecozone in between Vail and Whipple Observatory, there's nothing blocking that. We don't have a wall, there's no mountain, there's nothing to block light going there. And so protecting that space and saying, okay, someone has to speak for them. Let's keep it level, let's not increase it and cause problems, because they're learning a lot about light and how blue light is affecting that space. The same thing is true for the observatory going south for Whipple Observatory. It's true at Mount Lemon. It's true, every observatory. And so kind of keeping those levels level to recognize people have to be able to habitate the area, but also not increasing that light.
And it's just an informational question about 401.1.2A, which is the small,
number these,
which is the small parcel. These values, lumens per acre.
yes, those are per acre. I'm sorry, is that not on there?
And then multiplied by the actual size of the parcel to get the cap.
So
That'd be my
present,
developed area.
right, at present, that's developed area, which we have to now go back and rediscuss in subcommittee due to the earlier conversation in the meeting. So everyone understand that what you're seeing there is per acre. And now we have to go back and redo the thing that's right below it, which is 401.1.2B, which is the subject we discussed earlier with the definitions. So we'll have to go back and rework that. That's a great question. Thank you.
And John Barentine also just notes, I don't know if he's online or not, but if you look at the math in your table, the amount of light per acre goes down and then goes back up. I don't know if that was your intention.
It goes down.
It may have been because as your residential lots get smaller, you get to a point where you have required lighting. If you have a front door and a back door on a house, you have to have a light at each. So if you make your lot smaller and smaller and smaller, you end up with more houses per acre. You may need to raise that limit.
This is just in
To
the
accommodate
rows of
that.
your second table, you know, as you go
Yes,
to
yeah.
2 acres and 3 acres and 4,
Yeah,
and
that's-
so on. It goes through a minimum, I think.
Yeah, so we realized that it hits that, we hit a point where it has to level out and then slightly rise. Because of what's required. I mean, I remember that I had some door once that had no stairs under it and you would just fly out into the night if you had wings and there had to be a light above it. Okay,
And
so,
this is Alec. I'm looking at the chart. It's between the two amber sources that you're using. It raises back up for narrow beam, which makes sense based on the light source. Right? Is that what I think that's what he's talking about.
table, Alec, and we're talking about the residential table, 401.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the full. Sorry, I was looking at the other table.
So that occurs just in that space. So again, this is now, that's I think an informational table for everyone, but we are gonna have to go back and redo that, I think.
I want to make a comment on the table 401.1.2A as published. Those lumen values are identically the same as the 2012 code right now. And I
Yeah.
don't think in subcommittee, we even debated that at this point.
I don't think we intended to change them.
Again, that's putting the brunt of the lumen caps onto commercial projects rather than onto any residential.
Yes, true. I'm sorry. So it looks like Christina, it looks like Eloise maybe has her hand.
I do. So I have been wanting to ask this question and it may fit in here. So my recollection of the 2012, the code now is that, and certainly what you're planning on doing, residential, I'm in this 401.1.2A. So I thought that everything had to be fully shielded, that you couldn't have unshielded. And so I was confused then when I was reading the larger document a month or so ago, that why is there some kind of a limit on unshielded if in fact everything has to be fully shielded?
It does not. In residential now, you are allowed to use unshielded light.
We always had unshielded light.
That's correct.
Yeah, there was unshielded light in the 2012 code as well.
Right, but I thought that was going to change, but it's not. So this,
As you probably heard today, we need to go back and reconsider the whole residential.
oh, okay. Okay, yes, you do. Okay, great, I got that, thank you.
Was that we had hoped to go to completely fully shielded, and that's not going to work in a number of circumstances. And so we have to consider how do we keep that balance and then start moving to what makes sense.
Great, thank you.
I hope that answered your question. It maybe didn't. Hopefully I'll have a better answer for you.
No, it did answer my question. That is, you haven't finalized this yet, and there's more work to be done on it, and then we'll see what it looks like. But for our purposes, probably good news that there will be some unshielded permitted, and then we'll have to figure out what that means and how it fits in along the lines we discussed with respect to the definition.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any more questions or comments on the lumen tables? Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next item on our agenda, which is our future agenda items, which it sounds like we're going to have a lot. I think our future agenda items. So for our next meeting, I'm just going to go through, is that okay, Clayton, with what it sounds like we need to have ready, which is our updated definitions for developed area. So that would be for commercial and residential. And so we'll be ready to discuss those with you next time, as well as the additional updates to definitions that have come out of this meeting today and what we need to discuss. We are making additional updates to the lumens tables, and will we be ready to discuss those photometric data?
I can't guarantee that, but
Okay, so we will not add that at this time, but we'll do our best. We'll see what we can do. But we will hopefully be able to come with an example of another project that already exists. I'm pointing at Dr. Green Bay. He can't see me. I'm pointing at him. So we'll come ready to discuss that and get those examples. Any other sections we need to?
Are we allowed to have a more generalized discussion on outdoor lighting code revisions, or do we have to just pare it down to specific?
This is Clayton. I don't think that we have that item on the agenda this time, but we can.
No,
certainly-
he means for next time.
For next time.
Yep, absolutely.
Then if we need to, we can veer off a little bit to
Mhm.
other things. Sometimes it would help if we could do that.
Perfect.
Okay.
We'll make it so.
All right. We would like to maybe take up most of the time doing that.
Would you like that to be the first item?
Yes. Thank you. And I think that that's probably most of it. Have I missed anything, Craig? Okay. Is there anything that anyone in the room or online would like added specifically to the agenda for next time?
Can you, when you work on definitions, could you try to come up with a lumen allowance that is for the parcel boundaries and not a subset of the parcel boundaries?
We will try very, I promise. We will try. This has been very difficult. As you know, you've been with us the entire way, Priscilla, and it's been a challenge. I think we've tried it every which way. We haven't yet gone to the, what's it called in that TV show, The Upside Down. We haven't gone there yet. Maybe that's for next.
I understand what the goal is, but the challenge from the private property side. And I know that you got to a point in the definitions where you thought we were talking past each other and not to the same topic. But we hear it when you say we're not restricting development, but we're just restricting the lumen allowance, but not the developed area. We hear it as a distinction without a difference.
Mhm.
And if I was just to give you an analogy of you have 1,000 square foot house,
Mhm.
and I say you can only light 60% of it or 40% of it, but you can use the rest of your house. You just won't have any lights in those rooms. So you are limiting utility when you are limiting lighting, and when you're limiting utility, you are limiting development. And so we hear it. You wanted us to hear, we're not restricting development, but I hear it as a distinction without a difference. So I think if you could deal with the whole parcel somehow. The other is from a tax base which funds everything. When we're mandated, when our development site plan mandates open space, you cannot develop this area without including this percentage of natural, undisturbed, unlit open space. It is part of our developed area because we are required by the city of Tucson and Pima County to include it in our developed area. So it does not make sense to us when it is a mandatory requirement of a developed area to be excluded. Especially since we're paying taxes on it. And it's integrated into our site plan and, you know, all of those other associated things.
We will do our best. I think that's going to be a problem always moving forward because like you said, it's an open space where you're not even allowed to put anything. So from the other side of this, we don't want that included in the calculation for lumens.
What I essentially just heard was we shouldn't have the concept of developed area. We should only be looking at the size of the parcel and set the lumen caps on that basis. And then the developer can decide where they use their light within the parcel. That's what I think you want to do.
I think so. And as technical as it is, I know this committee has been reluctant about assigning different lumens or partial lumens or mitigation credits or anything, but it's not that difficult to take a parcel that has 50% unlit, undisturbed space and 50% developed space and assign two different lumen allowances to that within one tax parcel, given how many gyrations have been done about everything else. I know the committee's been resistant to that, but it's not that it's not possible and within all the permutations that have been considered.
I know we're a little bit off our path here, but I think it's worth going into because this is a key thing for all this to work. And, I think we've all kind of been hijacked. And it all started with the fear of a single parcel that only half gets developed. But somebody uses all their lumens and then they do a property split. And now you have a new parcel and it starts over on lumen. So now the total on that suddenly is greater than what the lumen cap would be if it already remained one parcel. That's the whole place where all this started. And then that's where the developed area came out of, which says, well, okay, you build the first piece and that's your developed area. But it has now taken on a life of its own and going into all these other places. And I'm trying to figure out how to pull it back.
I think you could, if you keep the standard when the parcel is under common ownership or control. This standard applies if it stays under common ownership or control. Right? So then it's only, then it doesn't apply if that property is split and sold off and parceled and, you're going to have to make adjustments for a large retail commercial campus or any campuses that have phased developments. But if your concern is not what happens if it stays under common ownership or control, but what happens with the abuse of the lumens if it's lot split, then you could come up with an option for the parcel when it stayed under common ownership or control.
Yeah, I think that's where we have to go rather than complicate this developed area thing. I think we're moving away from where it all started, which was the fear of maybe not even intentionally happening, but just in the normal course of things, property gets sold off and nobody considers. I know we talked to city and county people about way of tracking the lumens during the lot split process. And I think the feedback was that there's almost no way to do that because it would require too much research and all this to be able to split your property. That's why we're off on this
Journey.
Yeah.
Let's call it a journey.
There are a lot of types of projects that we do where we're required to do what we call in the vernacular put and take tables, right? That we do, we are required. I mean, we do it with a transfer of development rights ordinance, right? We have an allocation. We can only, we move it from here to there, and we have to, every time we do a phase, we have to submit where we allocated those and where we took them from, and to show that we're still within the cap. So
then why couldn't lighting be part of that, I guess?
I don't understand why it couldn't be part of it. I mean, I don't think the city uses transfer of development rights, but we do it with open space tracking too. We have a large phased project and we have to end up at the end with X percentage and net acres of natural undisturbed open space. And we don't want to, let's say it's supposed to be 50% open space. We do our first phase and it's only 30%. There, we can't do a second phase and be 30% before it get to the final phase and go, oh, we have to make up 50%. So in our put and take table, every time we do a project, we have to show that we reasonably are going to get to the end of the phases and be within the cap. So it's not, like I said, you guys deal with rocket science. I'm not, I mean, it's not that difficult to create that where you make sure at the end, even if you lot split it or whatever else, you're not exceeding the cap for the total site area. And I'm happy to send some of the examples that we use. We use it both for density under the TDR, and we use it for open space to make sure that we have to get to her.
Yep, would you send that? Yeah, we sent, Clayton will distribute it to the rest of us if you send that to him. I would appreciate that. Thank you.
That could help us.
This is Clayton with the city. I would like to also just acknowledge that there's more than one scenario that this intended code would apply to. So previously with the whiteboard, we were really talking about like a residential lot on a very, very large parcel where only a small building was placed or a small developed area. But then there's all this open desert for lack of better reference. And the concern of that somehow in the future being split and then getting additional lumens because they used the whole lot size to illuminate a small portion of the lot. So that's one scenario. Another scenario is a commercial facility, a commercial lot, and that can be further broken down into different scenarios. One where there's phases of development, but then also consider an existing Kmart, for example, that's now gone out of business and they have a huge parking lot. Okay, and now, you know, they decide to put more buildings onto that lot. So the original approval concentrating all of the lumen budget into a small area is really the crux of the problem, right? And I think perhaps there may be another way to address this rather than trying to create a percentage that intends to prohibit that.
Sounds like a Monday project. So Priscilla, we'll follow up with you and get those materials from you though, so we can look at them and consider them. Since we were talking about future agenda items and we got ourselves on a little wayward side street, I'm gonna launch right into, I know we're at 1 minute to the end, so what is your recommendation?
The audience, okay.
Okay, we're skipping right over.
Now
No, I mean, we're skipping right over code enforcement today. I'm gonna say so sorry to the audience. We're gonna skip over code enforcement today. Also, because I don't think our code enforcement officer is here anyway, right? She's not here. So good for us. Okay, we're gonna skip right over that and go straight to our call to the audience.
Okay, I'll be quick. I wrote it down, so I won't. Okay, first, thank you guys so much for, I know all of you guys are volunteered here, spending so much time, and it's a very technical and complex topic. So I just want to say I appreciate each and every single one of you. So as stakeholders in commercial and residential development, we also appreciate that the members are working really hard to introduce flexibility into the code, and I can see that in the way that you guys have worked on the new lumen table. But we really urge you guys, and I'm just kind of piggybacking here on Alex here, as a whole to go further by conducting the quantitative analysis, including the photometric modeling, to ensure that the proposed lumen caps still support compliance with nationally recognized safety standards, such as those established by the Illuminating Engineering Society, and also included in the preamble of the outdoor lighting code, and talking about safety and you know, those living in these areas. While we understand that every project is different and that no single study applies universally, the same is true of a one-size-fits-all lumen cap table, right? Reasonable lighting is essential for the safety of employees walking to their cars, customers navigating parking areas, and residents moving through their neighborhoods. We're not asking for perfection. We're asking for general data-backed assurances that safety won't be compromised. And I think that's everyone's intention here. We also asked the committee include a comparative table aligning proposed caps with relevant IES guidelines so that both stakeholders and the public can clearly assess the impact. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do we have anyone online?
No one.
All right. So then seeing no other, nothing else, I'm going to call for adjournment. And we don't need a motion to adjourn.
We're already adjourned.
Yeah, we're
done.
That fast. I know, that's so they gave. cheat sheet.
Have a great afternoon, everybody.
There's no need to get a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
The chair just have to say the meeting stands adjourned. You can have that. Christina sent back to me in case I had to write a meeting. That's like a
She
script.
also sent it to me and printed it for me because she knows I forget it.